It is quite astonishing to me that the Conservative Party at the moment, or rather the Daily Mail, which seems to have become the organ of the Conservative Party simply because its top chaps are due for honours in Boris's outgoing honours list. Of course, that won't happen, or it may not happen, if Boris is completely humiliated, and he looks set to be going down that route. Now, that would be a first in the UK. To have a Prime Minister thrown out of Parliament, even for a day or so, would be unimaginable. I mean, he ought to do the honourable thing and get out there, resign as soon as possible. That is the route of honour. But I don't think Boris understands that concept, and I'm so sorry about that. That was something which was failing in his classical education. The classics is full of instances where, when faced with dishonour or death, the hero chooses not to be dishonoured. I don't think Boris has that instinct at all. Dishonour would be his first choice, providing he can survive and then nurture some sort of plot to come back again. That won't happen. That won't happen. He will not come back from this. I think the deal is now done. I think he can wriggle no more. His withdrawal agreement has proven to be so shaky that it needed to be fixed. And now with the Westminster framework, it is almost fixed. I mean, it's never going to be right. It's never going to be right because the whole process was admired in chaos. Chaos partly because people thought there was a way of nodding to the democratic decision while doing something else. Actually, the only way out of the referendum was simply to say very clearly that it was advisory and not definitive. The moment politicians claimed that the referendum was a definitive referendum and that we had to act on it, it should have been acted on. It should have been acted on. There's no other purpose and no other route. And Mrs. May's dithering was almost as damaging as Boris's stupidity and Liz Truss's failure to read any paper that she was given. Let's not forget, Liz Truss was appointed Foreign Secretary by Boris. I mean, that's error number one. And I would hold Liz Truss as partly responsible for the development of the Ukraine war. Had we not had Liz Truss in place to anger Mr. Lavrov, there might even have been a possibility of a diplomatic solution. But no, she chose to play chicken without actually bothering to read her briefing papers. Madness. Madness. And who does she take as her inspiration? Well, presumably she takes the same inspiration as Nadine Dorries took, daily. Boris Johnson, day by day by day. Not a good source of inspiration. Anyway, let's get down to the real issue. The real issue is that the Daily Mail and the Conservative Party are wheeling out the people who they think are most equipped at rent-a-quote. Nadine Dorries and Jacob Rees-Mogg. The only thing these two have got in common is that they've both taken the coin to go into some sort of television media news thing. And I actually, Jacob Rees-Mogg is always listenable too. I can't say the same about Nadine Dorries, but she's good for a laugh. I mean, I do find she's getting better and better. But when there are so many professionals available, why are we using these second-rate amateurs? I don't understand. So anyway, they're available because clearly they don't have anything to do in Parliament, for which they are paid. Number one, they're available. Number two, they can be certain to support Boris. Why? Because without Boris, they are nothing. both of them, and they know that. So they are partisan. They talk about utter fury. They are splenetic, apoplectic, furious. But their fury is built on very little substance. Because they knew what Boris was like when he was elected. Boris has never changed. And more than that, to be furious about the revelation that Keir Starmer knew Sue Gray, well, we already knew that. We knew that a year ago. We knew of Sue Gray's family long before that. We knew that it was a Labour-leaning family. We didn't know that she was Labour-leaning, but we did know that she was an independent civil servant. In fact, we knew that Jacob Rees-Mogg was praising her for her independence. Let's actually listen to what he has to say. If I can get this thing to work. No, I can't get it to work.
Sue Gray is independent and is preparing the report in her own time without coming under pressure from the government. It's quite.
So he says Sue Gray is independent and is preparing the report in her own time. So the one person who is saying that she is utterly independent is the person who is now saying so much for an impartial civil service. The Gray report now looks like a left-wing stitch-up against a Tory Prime Minister. We can't have it both ways, and I'm sure Jacob Rees-Mogg will be the first person to say that under normal circumstances. Sue Gray is independent and is preparing a report in her own time without coming under pressure from the government, when he thought that she was going to whitewash the issue. But she couldn't whitewash the issue, because at the same time that she was preparing a report, the police were also preparing a report, and the police independently issued 126 fines in their parallel process. Was that also a Labour plot? I mean, was it also a Labour plot that somebody broke a swing, that somebody was vomiting and that vomit had to be cleaned up, that somebody had to buy a wine fridge, that somebody was singing karaoke on a day when the rest of us were unable even to take a walk together down the street? Was it a Labour plot that somebody bought a suitcase to wheel home booze, or to wheel into number 10 the bottles of booze they bought, or that somebody threw a party on the night before Prince Philip's funeral? Was all that a Labour plot? I mean, I think we actually need to look at this realistically. Whatever Sue Gray's political ties, and we knew that she also knew Keir Starmer because he said it. Whatever Sue Gray's political ties, she was praised for her independence by Jacob Rees-Mogg, who now condemns the whole thing, and as a Labour plot, and she only reached the same conclusions that the police reached. It is madness for either Jacob Rees-Mogg or Nadine Dorries to be apoplectic, to be upset, to be irritated at this moment. I think all this is a huge distraction from the fact that Harriet Harman has issued her first draft of her definitive statement that Boris Johnson misled Parliament, because that would lead to Boris Johnson being suspended from Parliament. And that is the real issue. Everything else is smoke and mirrors and a game. What we're seeing at the moment is the Westminster game. The real heart of this story is what happens with Harriet Harman's investigation. And she hasn't yet taken testimony from Boris. What can he do now? What can he do now? We wait to see. Showman that he is, he may have some sort of rabbit tucked away somewhere. But I certainly don't see one coming. If you see a rabbit let me know. Oh, Bugs Bunny.